Hi, welcome to Mercurius Being. I am Amy Jensen here with your astro update for the second bonus Aries new moon solar eclipse, which will be exact on April 19th at 11:13 p.m. here in the Central Time Zone. So it could perhaps be on April 20th if you are farther east from here. So we had the Aries ingress March 20th, actually. March 21st, we had the first Aries new moon, and then now we're at the 29th degrees Aries. We had the Libra full moon in between there, and just every once in a while you get two new moons in the same sign, and that is where the term blue moon comes in, as in once in a blue moon. So it's an every once in a while occurrence that really doesn't bring a lot of weight as far as the blue moon terminology, but the fact that we're really getting to revisit this Aries energy intensely and intently does mean something, okay? And especially since we started all of this, obviously, 0 degrees, really the first new moon coming again right on the heels of the ingress into the sign. And then we get to experience the polarity at the Libra full moon. And then we have another new moon, which is all about initiating action and starting, but it's in the 29th degree, 50 minutes of Aries, so quite close to 0 degrees Taurus. So we get another dose of that Aries energy, plus, let's turn up the heat because it's a solar eclipse. Okay, well, I'll show you the chart, and we're going to travel a bit today in this because I really was led in a little different areas than I was expecting, but it all works out. And hopefully this is an invitation for you to take anything you hear from me and run with it. And also, as I am such a big believer and such a, I would say, messenger of the messenger god Mercury, that's kind of my point, is like I'm making these correlations and these connections, and it's an invitation for you to do that in your own life, which studying our own astrology charts really is the point now, isn't it? And learning about ourselves and how things respond, how we respond, react to situations in our daily life, and cosmic situations such as the eclipse. When it hits your chart, you will feel it. If it doesn't hit anything in your chart, this might just be another new moon for you. So let's go to the chart. And again, this is for where I live, so it's not going to necessarily be in this these houses for where you live. So we have on one edge of the bowl, we've got Pluto, and the other edge of the bowl, we have Mars, and that's just the way they're going to be until Venus speeds up and moves past Mars. At the heart of this, we have the Sun and Moon in Aries, joined by Jupiter still and Chiron. It's a little wide, but they're all in there together, a little 4-planet group. And then the North Node is in Taurus, and Mercury and Uranus also in Taurus. Those are kind of the major players here. So as you can see, from Uranus all the way back to Chiron, really 31 degrees of the heavens hold a lot of the planetary presence and energy. So a lot is flowing through that area. So Mars is the ruler of Aries. So it has a little say, shall we say, in the energies that those planets are experiencing. And at this time, Mars has a minor aspect to the Sun and Moon. It's a quintile, which is a creative aspect. And so I just got the vision. It's like it's Mars in Cancer is sending creative energy to the Sun and the Moon. So Mars is in its fall in Cancer. So Mars rules Aries. It is in unfamiliar territory in Cancer. It's exalted in Capricorn. It's in its detriment in Libra, excuse me. So Mars rules Aries and its detriment in Libra. Exalted in Capricorn, because Mars is like a good soldier to that Capricorn energy of like giving it marching orders, giving it a job to do. Mars likes that. It knows like, hey, I can work with that. And then it's in its fall in Cancer, because Cancer is the calm. Cancer can be hot water too, but it's unfamiliar territory. It's uncomfortable territory for Mars. Cancer is the domain of feeling. It's reflective lake water, and lake water can get choppy, and of course, and like I said, it can get hot. But the sign of Cancer is very sensitive, very intuitive. That again, very watery, family, feeling one's way through. There can be some clannishness or tribalness in it, like, you know, people you identify with, your family or your tribe, they're viewed as safe, and then people outside of that are unsafe. So there's a little bit of that energy, just a lot of emotions and feelings, and really kind of very core feelings and emotions. So Mars is in Cancer, and it's in 13 degrees Cancer. And remember that soon after the sun went into Aries, and we had the new moon in Aries, we had the Pluto ingress in Aquarius, and then Mars went into Cancer after being in Gemini for 7 months. So I just got the sense that Mars in Cancer with this quintile to the sun and moon, it's supporting this new moon eclipse with a little advice. So Mars has found himself in a foreign land of feelings. And Mars is saying, you know, but what do I do with all my fieriness in this? And I just started thinking about water and how it's harder to move in water. Like if you ever try to walk on the edges of a beach, there's resistance. The idea of, so I still walk a lot, but I used to run and walk a lot. And then one summer, found myself swimming more with our family. And I thought I'd be way better at it than I was, and I was not. It was really hard. Number one, I don't know much about swimming. I'm a passable swimmer. I'm fine and I'm comfortable in the water. I don't have good form. I mean, I'm not insulting myself. I'm just not a swimmer. So one needs good form if you're going to be in an area of resistance and in a medium that you're moving in and you're not used to it. The breath is different. And so you're really using your breath a little bit differently. And obviously you're using your whole body. You're using your arms and your legs. So I was just thinking about navigating the eclipse. Mars is saying to work on your form, be the most streamlined you can be. So be effective. Understand, again, the medium you're in, the conditions that you're operating within. So maybe spending time in the water or spending time in your feelings. And this is kind of weird because this is a 29 degrees Aries eclipse, right? So why am I talking about feelings? Well, just see what feelings come up. And like I said, work with them, feel into them, because they're going to cue you into some good advice, some honesty about where you are and how you're reacting. Learn how to float. To make it easier on yourself. So the non-resistance, like maybe pulling away and observing. And then another point, increasing or being aware of, are you a short distance? Are you a sprinter? Are you a marathoner, right? So pace yourself. So learning about the breath, learning about expending your energy, because Aries is all about energy, and asserting yourself in the world and coming into this world with that I amness. So there's a sense now with the wise old degree of 29 degrees Aries of pacing yourself. Hopefully you've learned some things since March 20th. I mean, hopefully I have. That's every day I hope I learn something. And hopefully we've maybe learned a little about pacing. But if we haven't, this is another new moon. So it's another opportunity. So increase your lung capacity and understand the rhythm, the meter, of your breath. And this is really helpful when you are swimming or when you are singing. So maybe some breath work. And our son used to be a swimmer. I'm sure he still is, but in sports. And watching swim meets, it was really fascinating because the first thing to go when anyone would get tired was the kick. And so it would first become irregular, and then it would just like is non-existent, super irregular. Okay. So there's just, again, something about a whole bodiness. So a really embodied energy. And that it became more effortful. You'd watch the swimmers, and no judgment, because like I said, I would have been horrible. I would have like maybe gone 25 yards and be like, whew, that's it for me. Even at my best, right? So there's just the streamline, the form, effort versus non-effort. So there's always going to be effort when you're moving through something, but making it as streamlined and effortless as possible. Okay, so Jupiter, our friend, the god of expansion, is still conjunct the sun and the moon. It's 6 degrees. It's separating. It's, that's a little wide, but I would say, really the sun, was that just on Tuesday, the sun-Jupiter conjunction, Tuesday the 11th? So it's the sun, it's still in the mix, and it's such a big planet, and it's in the sign of Aries, and it's really almost, it's midpoint between the Chiron and Aries, and then the sun and the moon. So I still think it's in the mix. So it is still infusing and expanding and opening us all up to possibilities. I'm probably said this 7 million times, but the sense of having faith, the sense of having hope, the sense of risk-taking and not doubting yourself or your abilities. Going back to the Mars inspiration of kind of fill in the pieces, like train yourself. Like if you do feel that there are some pieces that you are doubting, or you're like, yeah, I do know I need to work on that a little bit, just own it. I'm still working on everything. But don't stop going forward, okay? And interesting, there's still the energy of Jupiter. It is a lot of outward moving forward energy and expanding energy, but there is still something about going within into the mind and planning and deliberating and having a sense of big picture. So that's like a really harmonious Jupiter. Have a sense of your plan, your goal, like the Sagittarius archer, shooting the arrow. It's not just like expansion, the arrows go willy-nilly, but it can be. And I'm simply not going to make fun of myself this whole time, but at times, if a person has an inharmonious Jupiter, at times, and I will say that person as in me, sometimes there can be this like, just throw the arrows out there. And I love that enthusiasm in people. I love a good Sagittarius energy that way. But just to rein it in a little bit and really focus and plan and then expand. Okay. Chiron, Mars squares Chiron quite closely. Is still this energy, and again, Mars ruling Aries, the sign that Chiron's in, and I spent a bunch of time on that in the last video. Again, this energy of healing and becoming whole, the courage to be yourself and owning all of yourself. The Chiron wound being very specific in your chart. It's a place of deep vulnerability, but working with it has mad rewards. It's invigorating. It's enlivening. It is frightening as hell, but empowering. It's a sense of accepting the softness within us, the perceived weaknesses we all have. And as I say that or feel that, 1,000 past examples and slights might come into one's head like, boom, as soon as you touch into that Chiron wound in your chart. Like you can almost go back like a movie and audio bits of this person saying something and this person dinging you and da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's it. You hit it, you know, like bingo, right? But in those hurts and slights is this huge and wonder-filled gift of insight and understanding. It's a deeper level of knowingness, a kinder kind of aha breath of release. It's the key, it's like the perceived missing piece. And all of this Aries energy is emboldening each of us to look into this wound, to take off the dressing, the bandage, and see the kind of cool, kind of weirdly fascinating layers of the wound. And just accepting this perceived wound or lack brings this sense of wholeness and a deep, deep love. And again, that acceptance, just a deep level of acceptance, really, really big love and deep love, like down to your cells. And just having that courage, that Aries energy to be that all of yourself, to embody, I'm in my body, I'm in it, I'm owning it, I'm integrating it. And you don't have to go out and heal the world with that Chiron wound, but just yourself and right? Just yourself. But just in those acts, like it's almost like a little stitch or a little suture, a little, movement toward lovingly healing and calming that wound. That act within will be reflected without. And just also accepting our shared humanity and our shared and differing life experiences, because everyone's walking around with some kind of wound. There are just some of them that really reflect or annoy or trigger each of us in our wounds. Okay, thus and that, bringing me to the Lord of the underworld, dear God of Hades, Pluto, in Aquarius, tightly squaring this eclipse. 0 degrees, 29 minutes, man. So, the god of death and transformation in the fixed sign of Aquarius, squaring the sun and moon in Aries, which is cardinal fire. It's almost 0 degrees Taurus, right? Thus the square, you usually think fixed to fixed square, but this is an out of sign square, so it means a little something different. What came to me, and I'm sitting there, and again, I don't know if it's Mercury, the Kriya yoga guides, the Archangel Metatron guide, or the ethers, or whatever, the folds of my mind unfolding. But what came clearly as I sat writing this was the law of immutability. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm looking it up. And of course, a law is a system of rules that a society or a government develops. Immutability will never or can't be changed. And so I look up, law of immutability, and I'm looking up, it's like legal terms. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a Mercury YouTube channel. It's not a Capricorn master's thesis. I'm like, oh, I do not want to do that much homework for this. But it was so funny because then I also came upon the energetic laws, which are actually from the Mercurial or Hermetic tradition, which are the energetic laws that the universe is mental. The principle of correspondences. This is the law of immutability. vibration, the law of vibration, of polarity, of rhythm, and the laws of cause and effect, which are karma. And so my other thought was like, are we really adopting these energetic laws? Are they becoming codified or solidified in our world systems? Which the answer is probably yes. Okay. So on the one hand, I thought, well, that's cool. And then on the other hand, I thought, well, that's kind of trixies, isn't it? Like, who's going to call that? And there is a hell of a lot of room for manipulation within the laws of energy. Then I go back to our lovely little new moon solar eclipse in the late wise degree of 29 degrees, 50 minutes Aries. And I say to myself, why the individual? It's not in Taurus, which would be beautiful and slightly different, right? Although we will have, I believe it's a lunar eclipse in Taurus next. Well, it would be Scorpio. Yes. So we're going to flip back and forth between Scorpio or fixed signs, again, Scorpio, Taurus, and Libra, Aries. But, okay, going back to cardinal fire, Aries, the individual. So, as we switch to these next 20 years, as Pluto's moving into Aquarius, again, hasn't been there since 1777 to 1797, right? So yeah, I mean, I know in the United States, I looked up other world events for this. So there were many changes between that period of time. The French Revolution, there were the English and India wars, Haitian Revolution. Anyway, I don't want to digress to that whole thing. So there were just a lot of events going on there. So that's a lot of research, and you can do that. But know that was a very big period of revolution and change in the world. But going back to the Aries, the individual, each one of us, and our responsibility then to be clear if these energetic laws are being codified and brought into society, we must do the transformation, each one of us. And this system can't be imposed upon us. I mean, it can be imposed upon us or upon one, but we need to learn the lessons and we need to evolve. But this evolution has to be integrated, to be safe, not jump-started. Okay? If that makes sense. So, evolution and transformation. And I was kind of thinking like science and imagination. And I kind of went down this rabbit hole, and I'm not anti-science by any means. Antibiotics are awesome. Treatment for diseases, awesome. All the cancer research, all the surgeries. I am totally awestruck, amazed, and appreciative. However, science without soul, science without conscience, con-science, is no bueno. Like, we can't evolve scientifically or technologically without evolving our individual and collective consciousness, being embodied and being ensouled, S-O-U-L-E-D. So, when I looked up the etymology of conscience, it's more about being aware, the faculty of knowing what's right. Awareness that the acts for which one feels responsible do or do not conform to one's ideal of right, a sense of fairness, a sense of justice, and a sense of moral sense. Okay, And then the etymology of science is the original notion in the Latin verb to separate one thing from another, to incise, related to scindere, to cut, divide. Anyway, to divide, separate throughout. So it's like, sounded very Mars-like to me. And again, it's kind of breaking things down to see how they work. But again, not to leave the soul out of the science, not to leave the conscience out of the science. That's all I've got on that. I don't have a bone to pick with science. So I'm just saying technology and science are rapidly evolving, but we as humans, you know, we have to wait for the body. We have to wait for the feeling. We have to wait for the heart. We have to wait for the conscience. We have to just be ensouled and embodied to evolve. You just can't skip it. We all know that. That's the karma. That's the law of karma, cause and effect. Okay, I'm going to jump from there. So we will have on May 5th a lunar eclipse, which will be in the middle of Scorpio, Taurus, and then we'll be moving to Libra in October, Libra for the solar, and then back to Taurus at the end of October for Taurus. So we're kind of going back and forth between the navel chakra, which is Aries and Scorpio, and the heart chakra, which is Taurus and Libra. So it's like the heart and the gut, kind of back and forth, whether we're in the Aries Libra polarity or we're in the Scorpio Taurus polarity. And this eclipse is the first set of the Aries Libra eclipse. If you're a fixed sign person like myself, you're kind of like, hallelujah. And as I said, we still have a little bit left. And but yeah, the eclipses can please move on to another set of signs. Thank you. But it's the last degree of Aries. Similar degrees of past eclipse sets, or similar degree of past solar eclipses, excuse me, April 19th of 2004, and eclipse effects can be about 6 months afterwards. So think about April 19th of 2004 and the following 6 months and what was going on for you in your life at that time. Also look back to Aries, April 18th, 1977, if you are older like me, and think of what was happening at that time for you as well. So that's the last time an eclipse was right around 29 degrees Aries. In 2013 through 2016, there was an Aries Libra set. And in 2004 and 2006, there was another Libra Aries set. So you can look back to those areas if the 29 degrees solar eclipse specifically didn't hit anything in your chart, just looking to those times to see what was going on. So Rahu, the north node of the moon, the head of the dragon, is swallowing the sun at this time. The north node is conjunct. And it doesn't always have to be conjunct. It's in the ballpark when this happens, but for an eclipse, it's right there. It's swallowing the sun, and the north node adds a level of exaggeration, but it also looks to the future. So it's usually, we kind of say it's our evolutionary path, but it can also be so future looking at that, the future that is unsure, that you're moving towards. However, that can also be filled or have its own pitfalls of illusion. Okay, so it can, both nodes can be trixies, okay? So we're at, the north node is right next to the sun and moon. Rahu, Ketu in the Vedic tradition are like this invisible thread because they're not actual, physical points. But they're the points where the moon crosses north or south. And from Camilla Sutton's website, paraphrased, the thread from south and north, from north to south node, south to north node, is this invisible thread that holds the beads of our lifetimes. So it's kind of the thread of memory. So that's when we look at the nodes. The south node is our fallback, and in evolutionary astrology, we look at that as our past life. And again, the north node is the new territory that we're treading upon. And then, so this is a direct quote from Camilla Sutton. They work, Rahu and Ketu, in unison. So Ketu is the tail of the dragon. They work in unison, 180 degrees apart. So they're two oppositional points in the zodiac to churn our lives in order to externalize hidden potential and wisdom. Isn't that a beautiful way of saying how it feels like when your chart gets super hit by an eclipse? Rahu and Ketu represent cosmic law. Eclipses give us the ability to see the dark sides. And this is just me, the unclaimed, the unwanted, the shameful, the attachments, the addictions, anger, jealousy, envy, greed, desires, any of our karmic proclivities, the unworthiness, the unloved, the anything within us, or the over anything within us. So through an eclipse time, we're hit with it. We see it. Maybe we're forced to see it, either by the taking away of the light, and it highlights that area. It accentuates, it punctuates that area, so that we become conscious of it, and then we can let it go. So eclipses really can hit if they hit. So if there is something in your chart, and I'll say super tightly 3 to 5 degree orb, so we're talking 3 degrees would be 26 degrees Aries to 3 degrees Taurus, or 26 degrees any cardinal sign, 3 degrees any fixed sign, in that ballpark, square and opposition, conjunction. 5 degrees would be 24 degrees Aries, 4 degrees Taurus, or any fixed or cardinal signs. And then maybe at the widest 7 degrees, go 7 degrees. But these eclipses are, again, opportunities, like we're being stopped in our tracks by the heavenly event of being thrown into shadow. In physical real time, like we're experiencing it as it's happening. And then metaphorically, in our psychic and karmic and energetic resonances. So, needing to look at where in your chart is the eclipse, which house it's in, or which house the planets are in that are either square or opposed to it. Again, these are areas that are highlighted and emphasized. And I'm going to admit it, I did not give too much weight to eclipses until about 6 years ago, when one hit my chart quite strongly. And I'll save it for another time. It was a funny story, but you know it. And after that, I'm like, okay, noted. Super helpful. That thread was a big one, was a big karmic thread in my life and in past lives and in future lives. So just, working on that integration. Venus in Gemini is the dispositor of the Taurus North Node. So Venus rules Taurus and Libra. And she is peregrine at this time. She's a pilgrim. There are no aspects to Venus at this time in the chart. No major aspects. Okay, so we'll know any aspects. She is truly on her own. So she's very strong. Okay, she's also in mutual reception with Mercury, because Mercury is in Taurus. Venus rules Taurus. Venus is in Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini. So they're like, yeah, I got you. We're on the same wavelength, right? Mercury is conjunct Uranus, which is also in Taurus. Uranus is sometimes considered the higher octave of Mercury, so both very mental energies, but they're in Taurus. So the minds, plural, are embodied in matter, in the heart center, in matter, in the physical body. And the queen of matter, Venus, she's gathering in Gemini. She's communicating. She's bringing together. She's assembling. She is choosing. I got the image that she's shopping. She is picking this and that and just really kind of noticing the array, the possibilities from which to choose. So I'm just going to close this, I believe, here, going back to this being the 29th degree of Aries. Again, it's the second new moon. And then again, the first one came close on the heels of the Aries ingress. Pluto moving into, did I say Aquarius? Aries, yeah, Aries ingress, Pluto moving into Aquarius on 3/23, Mars moving into Cancer on 3/25. Okay, and I touched on that. Aries, again, is the first sign of the zodiac. It's initiating, it's assertive, it's courageous, it's enterprising. New moons are initiating, intentional. They are a little squirrely. I think, we set intentions at the new moon, but they really don't sprout until you start seeing that little sliver of the moon in the sky. And then it seems like the energy kind of calms down. So it is a time to begin. It is a time to plant the seeds. And this is for any new moon. But again, like kind of double because it's Aries and a new moon. But it's in the last degree of Aries, 29 degrees Aries, 50 minutes, like OG Aries energy, wise Aries. So this is like the Aries that have already climbed the mountain. They've already experienced the rush of bravery, the risking it all, the physically extending themselves wholeheartedly into the world, the jump into matter and physical existence. So I got this idea that maybe, like, what would your old Aries say to you? Like, would it write down this story and tell you all of its adventures, tuning into that inner guide? Would the old Aries, wise old Aries in you be that person? So I got this image that you're waiting in line at an amusement park. You're kind of nervous, but you want to go on this ride. It looks really fun, but it also looks pretty scary. You're just not sure what's ahead. But you see this person come out, this wise old Aries, and you ask them, how was it? How was the ride? Tell me about it. And you're scared, and again, you're nervous, but like you're really curious. And they tell you of the twists and the turns, the level of speed and the spatial orientation, and they might even share their sense of fear at certain points. But then they say with this kind of shake of the head, but it was an awesome ride, right? That excitement, that thrill, that you can just feel it. You can feel it coming off them, that thrill and excitement. Just this big smile beaming on their face. So get on the ride, see what happens, be effective, make some plans, see what comes up. Let everything that comes up be present. It's all coming up for you to see it. Everything that really comes up truly is a gift. It may not appear to be a gift. It may feel a lot more like hardship or a struggle or any kind of weakness, everything I've talked about. But there's a seed of seeing and knowing that's just waiting to take root. That is it for today, and I will be back at the next lunation.